What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Inside Lines Podcast. I'm your host, Atoya Burleson. Well, y'all, we are finally here. That's right. The regular football season is upon us and kicks off this week. And I have some news before we get started. This past weekend, Inside Lines had our first ever live fantasy football draft at Rough and Tumble Pub in Seattle, which is a women's pub, and it is home for all women's sports. So this bar is amazing because it plays women's sports on the big screens all day, all night, and serves delicious food and drinks, and I was there to witness it. Both Rough and Tumble and Inside Lines had a total of 100 women signed up for fantasy football and ready to play. Because not everyone could attend live, we did have a virtual draft as well. So we were able to zoom in some of the ladies and have an amazing and fun time drafting together. We had some of our first year Inside Lines draftees come in like, oh my gosh, Tanea. Tanea has been there from day one. Shout out to Tanea for taking the time to meet us in person, as well as agreeing to be a co-commissioner. I know she will kill it this year. And also thank you to Don, who is also a co-commissioner and has supported Inside Lines from the beginning. We appreciate you both. And we thank all the ladies who signed up and that are ready to put their teams together and not only draft, but put their teams together to compete. So on Thursday starts the competition. Ladies, set your drafts, get ready. If there's anyone you need to move out, pull in, just make sure you make those moves before Thursday. I cannot wait to get started and give out the updates on the season as we progress. And I thank all the ladies again for signing up and drafting. Good luck to you all this season. Like I said before, I was a champ for the 2023. So I'm trying to repeat, so hopefully it happens, but I don't know because my draft was a little shaky this year. I was drafting 7th. It didn't look too good for me. And from what Yahoo Fantasy Football said, my draft wasn't so great. But I want to give a shout out to Yahoo Fantasy Sports, who came in. They brought one of their experts. They showed these ladies how to draft. They answered questions. And we look forward to connecting with them again after the draft to answer any questions before we get started. So thank you to Yahoo Fantasy Sports who stepped in to support. Hopefully we can continue this amazing partnership. And thank you to Jen from Rough and Tumble. You are so amazing. I love how you support women. It really means a lot. Okay, ladies, good luck this year. And let's get into our interview with the amazing Jennifer Leno. On the show today, we have a wife to 10-year veteran offensive lineman Charles Leno Jr. and mother to 3 beautiful little girls, all under the age of 4, named Carson, Oakland, and Jordan. Jennifer and Charles also have 1 baby girl in heaven named Peyton. In addition to running a tight ship at home, Jennifer is the executive director of Beyond the Entertainer, an organization that focuses on showing that there is more to the athlete than what meets the eye. She is also a Pilates instructor and has somehow found the time to become a doctorate student who is obtaining her DBA with the concentration in nonprofit management. Please welcome to the show, Jennifer Leno. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
You are busy.
Yeah, I know. It just keeps me going, I feel like.
Okay, so we have to start right in motherhood because the fact that you have 3 babies under 4.
It's wild. It's loud. It's very loud. 3 girls under 4.
Yes, 3 girls. So how is that?
It's fun. I tell everyone, I'm like, they keep me young. I'm like, I'm only aging. And I'm like, my house is always loud. It's always wild. We always have music on, dancing, screaming, hair pulling, all the things. But it is so much fun. I've always been, in the football sense, team mom. So it's so fun because I'm team mom now to my little team at home. And It's just the best. I love it. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
That's awesome. Okay, so we're going to back it up. I need you to tell us how you and Charles met.
So funny, we tell everyone that we met at work because I actually worked for the Bears when he got drafted there, but we matched on Tinder. So
no, really? Really?
Yes, we matched on Tinder literally right when he got drafted to Chicago. And we ended up meeting up. And I'm like, wait, you're one of the draft picks. Like, I work for the team. I'm like, this is not supposed to be happening. And we ended up being really good friends for about a year. And then I left the Bears. I started working for the Chicago Bulls. And we finally started dating. And we have been together ever since. And that was back in 2014, 15? So, hey, shout out to Tinder. It worked.
Yeah, and for you to be like, okay, we're gonna just pause here and just wait. First of all, that was smart, right? Because you didn't want any drama.
Yeah,
and we know how the rules can get. Yeah, it gets a little tricky. Okay, but I want to know, when you say you matched on Tinder, how do you know who swiped first? How does that work? Do you know?
No, because I'm assuming. Well, clearly it had to be him because I matched and it was an instant match. So he swiped first. So.
Yes, I love it. Okay, and so you went to the Bulls. You obviously are in the sports world. Talk about that life for you and how it started.
So from a young age, I knew I wanted to work in sports. Everyone told me I was crazy because women in sports, whatever. And I thought I really wanted to work for the Bears. Originally, I wanted to be a sports agent. And so I got an internship in college, my first or second year. And I was working with a TV show in Chicago where we brought on the Bears players. And, a couple of players, you'd meet them and whatnot. And they're like, you have way too big of a heart to be an agent. And I was literally destroyed. Because I was my whole life. And once I started realizing, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to call me and tell my player got cut, or I'm going to have to tell my player nobody wants to sign them. I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. I'm going to be crying all the time. I'm a Cancer. I'm very emotional. I was like, you're right. So then I'm like, I'm going to get into broadcasting. So I switched my major, started broadcasting. I did one broadcasting class and I had to listen to myself back. I'm like, no, I can't listen to my voice this much. I'm like, this isn't going to work. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, my dreams are just gone right now. So I ended up I'm going to do sports management. I'll figure it out. So started the sports management route, and I realized I love working in the community. I love giving back. So I'm like, okay, hopefully I can put these two together. So I started my senior year of college. I was in Chicago, and I was a full-time student. I was working for Starbucks, the Chicago Bears, the Chicago Bulls, the Chicago Fire, and the Chicago White Sox. And I said, I'm getting my foot in the door somewhere. I was grinding.
You were everywhere.
Yes. And so I ended up, I got hired by the Bulls as just a 50-50 raffle ticket seller. And I'm this is what I want to do, which I never saw myself working in basketball because I love football. But I realized I love football so much. I was like, I'm not working on game days. Absolutely not. And so, I did that for Charles' first year in the league. I was working on game days, and I'm like, no. I remember I literally called in sick one day, and I went to the game, and I was like, yeah, this is it. I'm not working on game days anymore. And so, my first day on the job with the Bulls, my boss comes up to me and he's like, hey, can you come to my office? And I'm like, I'm getting fired on my first day? So 50-50 raffle, not really my thing. I'm like, you got to be loud and out there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm out there. But I'm like, these people don't want to buy these tickets. Okay. And he was like, I need an assistant. And he was like, would you like to be my assistant? And I was like, yes, I would. He's like, okay, you'll be helping me and everything I'm doing. I'm like, okay, I'm pumped. So start literally first day, he clearly, God bless me, he knew I was not supposed to be a 50-50 raffle ticket seller, just did not fit me. Yes. And I got the assistant role. And so it gave me a little more responsibility. And near the end of the season, my boss ended up telling me, he's like, I'm getting promoted. My job is going to be open. You're graduating. I want you to interview for it. He's like, interview for it, and I think that you can get it. And I was like, okay. And my boss was absolutely amazing. He's literally probably one of the reasons that I stayed in the community relations aspect of sports. Wow. And so I interviewed for the position, ended up getting it. And I'm like, how often does that happen? You go to school for something, you graduate, and you have a job lined up. I'm like, well, this is awesome. So I worked in the CR department for the Bulls, absolutely loved it. And then, as Charles and I's relationship started to grow, I was giving a lot of time to my job and not as much to the relationship. So eventually I left the sports world. And I just, worked some odd and end jobs here. Like literally went and worked at Starbucks again, like full time, so I could travel whenever I wanted. My boss was awesome there. I went to all the games, I was just being young. And then eventually I went back to school and got my master's. And that's when starting our own nonprofit came about, which was a huge dream of mine since I started working in sports in the community. So it's been a wild ride, but
that's awesome. So did you know, so I know you said you always wanted to work in nonprofit. And so first of all, how long were you all dating before you were like, hey, I have an idea?
So when we were friends, I knew he had a big heart too. We're both very generous people. And so he would tell me about things that he'd do where the team would always be asking him to go and volunteer for events. And I'd be like, you need to do it, because that was me at the Bulls, right? Oh, I need this player at my event. And they'd be like, no, or they don't show up. And you're like, okay. So I'm like, no, you're going to be at that event. And so the Bears CR department, most of them are still there. They loved me because they would just text me, can Charles be at this event? Yes, he can. He will be there. He's like, what is this? I'm like, no, you're going to go. And so I always knew, that he had a big heart, and we had talked about it probably in about 2017. And I was like, he's like, who do we have run it? What do we do? What is our mission going to be? All of this kind of stuff. And I've always been that person. I'm like, I can do it, but I want to educate myself. So that's when we decided I was going to go back to school. Cause I'm like, I don't want to start this and be relying on somebody else to do everything.
Yes.
Let's get myself educated the way, and clearly that's why I'm getting my doctorates now, to help even more people. But it worked out great. I had a lot of internships throughout my time in my master's program, working with Make-A-Wish, Ronald McDonald House, huge charities, and just seeing what works for them and what, we could take from those practices and bring into our organization. So, I feel like it's always been on the back burner, but it was awesome. I think it was 2020 we established it, and then COVID hit right away. So we had to alter everything we were doing, but it's been amazing, and I just love it.
So you know what? I think this is it's perfect that you're on and you're talking about this, because I think about all the other players and player significant others that want to do something like this, but to your point, they don't really know where to start. What advice would you give these young ladies? I'm going to say young ladies because, we usually do a lot of the work. What advice would you give them if they're interested in starting?
I think biggest thing is finding whether it's yourself and somebody else, but finding someone to lean on. So clearly, as these women all know, once it gets to football season, your man's pretty much MIA. So if you guys are doing events during football season, if you're the person running the organization, you're doing it all. He is just showing up. That is really what it comes down to. So, kind of balancing what you can handle during season. A lot of us have kids or other priorities or other jobs to do. Figuring out, not putting too much on your plate at once, because it's I remember when we started, I was like, I'm going to do this event, this event, this event, this event. And then I'm like, wait, that's all your off days. I don't get to see you at all. Then we had kids, and I'm like, oh, we do a huge event in December, literally from the 1st of December through the 25th of December. And luckily for me, the past 2 years, our bye week has fallen during that. And so I'm like, oh, we have an event every day. Some days 2 events, some days 3 events. And this past year, it was hard because I'm like, we have little kids now. So I'm like, okay, I put way too much on our plate. So I think that's a big thing too, is just making sure you can manage what is on your plate. And then lastly, use the benefits that the league and the PA give you. There are so many grants and just even your agency, free items they'll give you for camps and all of this. In the beginning, I was just doing everything out of pocket. And I'm like, wait, we can do this? For instance, the PA, I'm like, they have every week they recognize somebody as a community MVP in the league.
Oh, wow.
They get $10,000. So I'm like, you can submit your stuff every week that you're doing. I'm like, Charles has won 4 years in a row. That's easy $10,000 right there. And I'm like, that money then can be applied to your organization to do whatever you want to do in the community. So just using those little perks that we have.
Yeah, that's actually great advice. I didn't even know about that last one. So I'm glad you shared that.
And if you get to like at the end, then they vote 5 guys for the Alan Page Award, which is basically the PA's version of the Walter Payton Man of the Year. And if you get that, you get even more money. And then if you win that, you get even more money. So I'm like, there's so much money out there to support your organization. Like you don't have to do it all out of pocket.
Yeah. I'm glad you shared that. I didn't know that it was that many stages either. So the fact that you can get money with each stage is incredible. So ladies, if you're interested, call Jennifer. She can help you.
Slide in my DMs. I'm all about the community. I got you.
Slide in the DMs. Okay, we got to talk about you, a mama of 3 little girls and all under 4. And there was this running joke that I would see that you got pregnant you came into training camp pregnant every year. People, so I'm a planner. Like I have the paper planner, the planner on my desk, one on my wall, my phone. Like I am a planner. So I'd be like, we knew we wanted our kids like back to back to back. Like we knew that. Well, really back to back. We thought maybe only 2 was going to be the thing. And so our first one, I'm like, okay, we're going to start trying on this day. And if we're not pregnant by this day, it's done. Like we're not going to try until next year. Because I said, I'm not having an in-season baby. Nope, not happening. And it worked. It worked with all of them. Praise the Lord. But yeah. Fertile Myrtle.
Every year in training camp, they're like, Jen, are you pregnant? Is there a baby in there? I'm like, stop it. I'm like, what? They're like, your husband just looks at you and you're pregnant. I'm like, I'm like, I know. I'm like, I don't know how this happens. But yeah, it was always a joke. He was just like, yeah. You
know, if it was only that easy where they could just look at you, I think that would make life a lot easier for all of us.
I'm like, guys, I was working hard. I'm like, this is training camp. You know how hard I had to work?
What would you say is the hardest part? Because you were pregnant during training camp. And what a lot of people don't know is during training camp, the guys leave. And so you're stuck trying to figure it all out on your own. Now, I know that there's sometimes people have family or they find someone, to help. But talk about how it is during training camp when they're gone and you're there trying to take care of everything.
It's a lonely time, I will say. So we did 7 years in Chicago. My family was close, but unfortunately, I didn't have kids till the end of our time in Chicago, and it was COVID. So I did that year by myself with my first baby. But when we moved to Virginia, like I don't have family from there. Like he's from California, I'm from Chicago. I didn't really know anyone when we moved there, and I moved there with a maybe 2-month-old and a 1-year-old, and I shortly got pregnant after that. When we first moved there, we lived in an apartment on the 31st floor because my husband thought it'd be great to live in a skyrise with 2 dogs and 2 babies. So I'm glad he got to live out that dream of his, even though he wasn't home. So yeah, it was very fun taking 2 babies and 2 dogs outside in the cold to let them out.
In the freezing cold.
Yes. So luckily I found like an amazing girl that helped me with the girls like part-time, just so I could go like work out and just like go socialize with girls on the team and whatnot. But during that time, it's hard. Like not even just training camp in general, just like football season is hard. I tell people all the time, like I come from a family with a single mother, and I tell my mom all the time, I'm like, shout out to you, because single moms, I'm like, y'all be holding it down. Because I'm like, I have to single mom it basically, during season, because my kids wake up after my husband's already gone and they go to sleep before he gets home. So I'm like, I'm doing it all, and I feel like taking care of another toddler basically with him. So, it was hard, but it's one of those things you figure out what works for you, and everyone's different. I tell everyone, like, I am a caterer. Like I take care of the household. I take care of my husband. This is not, some people don't agree with this, but I'm like, from the moment we had our kids, like I was always the one to get up with the girls. Like I was like, I'll do it. That is my job. Like your job is to go out on that field and to perform. And I know if you're tired or, whatnot, it's probably not going to be the best product out there. So I always took that responsibility. And I feel like in a way it kind of comes with the role of being married to an athlete. It's kind of just in your job description. And like I said, some people, hey, that might not be it, but it worked for us. And that's kind of what we did. I always used to say like off season's Jen time. I'm like, that's my time.
That's right.
So yeah, he would wake up with the kids every once in a while or, do whatever. And, yeah, so I feel like you kind of just get into that routine. You figure out what works for you. Like I said, we hired help here and there. I had a great support system with the girls on the team. Everyone kind of jumped in, someone's always holding one of my kids, But yeah, it's difficult, but you just have to remember at the end of the day, my husband's been in the league for 10 years. That's nothing. That is just a chapter of our lives. We have the rest of our lives now together. So I'm like, if I have to be a little stressed out for a few months of the year for us to be set up for the rest of our lives, I'm like, it's okay. That's a sacrifice I'm willing to take. So it's...
Yeah. I'm glad you shared that. And to your point, it is debatable. Some women are like, no, he's going to get up. If I have to get up, he has to get up. But you're right in the sense of when you think about what they do and just preparing for that, just going to battle every time they're out there on the field, it is a lot. And so not, sleeping or feeling, not your best could really result in some, basically consequences that you could potentially never come back from.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're like, I understand this, I know this, I'm not going to even have you worry about this. I'll see you in the off season. I know he was like, thank you.
So off season hits, I'm like, here you go. You got the kids.
Here you go.
Bye. No, I'm just kidding.
Happy
but
off season.
That's really he's great. If it's off season, he's that dad. He is all in. And I'm like, you want to know what? At the end of the day, that this is why we did what we did during the season. You focus on football, and it's not saying that we're not a priority. We know we're his number one priority, but at the end of the day, it's a very high stress job, and I'll take care of this high stress job at home. So
yeah,
we both have 100%. Our high stress jobs.
Tell me so 10 years is a long time. Tell me one of your favorite moments.
Favorite moment, clearly. I got proposed to. So I'm a diehard Bears fan. My grandfather was the longest season ticket holder in Bears history. So as a little girl, my dream was to get proposed to at a Bears game. Just across a little zip line or something. You'd always see him yeah, that's my dream. And then I started dating a Bears player, and everyone always laughs. And I'm like, I hate it left tackles. My favorite position is a defensive end. So I'm going against the left tackle. How I ended up with offensive lineman, I don't know. But we always laugh at that. But I'm he knew. He knew that was one of my dreams. And in 2018, we played the Green Bay Packers, so biggest rivals. And if we won that game, we clinched the division. And so with a few minutes left in the game, I already had known beforehand. They said the NFL wanted to interview me for our coach was really big on promoting family working in the community. So they're like, oh, the NFL is here. They want to interview you for talking about what you guys are doing in the community and talk about the family aspect of this team. And I was like, okay. So I go down to the field with 5 minutes left, and they're like, don't move, stand right here. And I'm like, okay. And so my mom had to come with me because she was at the game, and my stepdad. And next thing you know, the game ends. We beat the Packers. It was literally, I think, one of my husband's first times ever beating the Packers. And this was year gosh, it'd be 5 or 6 already in the league. And so it'd been a long time. We play them twice a year. So big time. That means we also won the division. And I see the security guard pass a Tiffany's blue box to my husband. And I was like, and I just started walking towards the middle of the field, where he was. I was like, well, I'm not waiting for anybody, which I threw off everyone's plans. They were supposed to record it all and all this. And luckily somebody from the NFL saw what was going on. So they got it recorded.
Oh, good.
But yeah, so he ended up proposing to me in the middle of the field with, 69,000 fans in the crowd.
Wow.
After we beat the Packers. It was my little dream fairy tale came true. So clearly not very, still football related in the sense, but I'm that has to be my favorite because it was just such a surreal moment,
right,
to be able to do that. And crazy thing is, for him, people are like, oh, that was her dream. He's like, I knew I always wanted to propose to someone at a sporting event. And I'm like, how cool is that both of our little dreams kind of correlated with one another.
Together.
So yeah, I'm like that.
That's a great story. I think it's hilarious too how you're like, oh, what is that? Let me go over here and see what's going on.
The funniest part is, so clearly people probably listen to this understand football. My husband's offensive lineman, the first play of the game, nothing happened. He false started. The first play of the game. I'm like, no plays have happened. How did you already false start? And he's like, I was so nervous. I'm like, so now it's a funny. I'm like, oh, you false started because you were nervous. You had something
now
else going
I get it. Right. At first you're probably like, what?
I'm literally sitting there and I'm like, with a big 72 on me. And I'm like, like, oh my gosh. I'm like, the game hasn't even started and he's false starting. I'm like, oh, I was like, it's going to be horrible. He played great, so it was okay.
Oh, he had to get the jitters out. Once he got the jitters out, he was good to go. That's an awesome story. Something that you can show your kids like forever, you
Literally,
know?
we have like the big picture of him proposing across from our family, we have our family photo on one side and then it's like him proposing on the other. And they're always like, Daddy, that's you and Mommy. And I'm like, I can't wait till they understand like what that was, because it was such an awesome moment.
That's so cool. That's something that you'll never forget. Like it'll be just ingrained in you forever. So that's
literally, I love it. Sometimes I just watch the video. I'm like, look at how cool this was. Like, this was my life. Like,
yes. That is so cool. Okay, so I want to talk about, being a mom. And last year, you were very vocal about something that happened to you and very transparent. And oftentimes on social media, people aren't very transparent. They only show the highs. They don't really get into their personal lives or talk about the lows and the struggles. And you were very transparent and talked about losing your baby girl, Peyton. And just walk me through that, what happened and why you decided to share that experience.
So July of last year, it was so funny because I started going to training camp. I had been there for maybe 2 or 3 girls, and Jen, is there a baby in your belly? Everyone was pregnant on our team, literally everyone. And they're like, Jen, you're next. And I'm like, stop, I'm not pregnant. I go home, literally, I had talked to like 3 girls. I'm like, guys, no, we're done. Like, he's getting the vasectomy this off season. We are done. And I go home and I literally got sick. Like, I walked in the door and I was like, I'm going to puke. I like went to the bathroom. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I'm pregnant. I'm like, I know it. I'm pregnant.
You felt that feeling.
Yeah. I like pee on a stick and it was so light, but I'm like, that's 2 lines. I'm like, I am pregnant. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, okay. Which I'm like, clearly we knew it was a possibility. Like,
yeah.
You already know. Don't even need to go into details there. So, so I was like, I'm going to wait. So the Bears and the Commanders played each other. The only two teams my husband had played for, they played each other in October. And I'm like, by October, I'll know if it's a girl or a boy. So I'm like, I'm going to wait. I'm going to surprise him at the game. And when I tell you, I had never been sick with my other 3 girls. I was literally puking my brains out like 24/7. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to keep this from him. Like, he's been like, what's wrong? Like, I would eat and like immediately puke. And so went in, they confirmed I was pregnant, and I was like, I'm going to tell him. And I'm a firm believer, like, every baby deserves to be celebrated, whether they're here for a week or they were, their whole life. So I've never been somebody that waited. And again, that's just my personal preference, like, to wait to tell him. So I got the team involved to tell him, and I made him push the wagon like up this big hill that had all 3 girls in it. And there was a big whiteboard and it just said, congrats Leno on it. And so they were recording all the teammates saying like, congrats Leno. Like, what are we saying congrats for? And they're like, oh, he's having another baby. So everyone was finding out before he was, because he was like signing autographs and playing with the kids. And so we walk up, and I had a jersey behind me that had like a number 4 on it and said Leno. And so we walk up, and he sees it and he's like, congrats, Leno. He's like, congrats for what? And he turned around and I just held up the jersey. And it was like the team recorded it. Like, I was mic'd, so it was great. And like, he had no clue. But from that moment, the pregnancy just did not feel like my other girls. And I'm convinced it was a boy, right? At this time, I'm like, I'm having a boy. That's why I feel this way. And I kept going in and I'm like, I don't know, like, I'm just not feeling right. And my doctors just kept brushing me off. They're like, you're fine. Heart rate's fine. Baby's growing good. Like, everything's good. And so I went in around 10 weeks because I had some spotting, and they're like, no, like, you're fine. It's natural. It can happen after intercourse. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I just like, this is nothing like my other pregnancies. Like, I had lost a bunch of weight, like, clearly was sick all the time. And so I ended up around like 18-ish weeks. It was like the 12th of October, I started spotting, and my spotting kept getting like brighter and brighter, and I was like cramping and I'm like throwing up. And my doctor had told me, he was like, no, like, you were stressing yourself out. Like, I am high anxiety, all the time. So he's like, it's your anxiety. Like, you've been sick. Everything is just kind of disrupted from that. And I was like, okay. And so the 13th came, and I'm like, all right, like, I'm still spotting. So I go into the doctor. They're like, no, you're fine. Like, everything is fine. I'm like, okay. I'm like, so the 14th on the morning I call because I'm supposed to be flying to Atlanta for our game. Okay. And I call the doctor and he's like, you were fine. Like you, and I'm like, okay, now I'm feeling like a crazy person because I'm that person. Like I don't go to the doctor if something's not wrong. I know that's bad, but that's just how I am. And so I'm like, no, I really think something's wrong. Like, and he's like, you're fine. I'm like, I'm fine to travel because I'm supposed to be on an airplane in a couple hours. He's like, yes. I'm on the airplane and I'm like, okay, like now I almost feel like I'm in like contractions. Like, I'm like, all right. Like, and I'm wearing like full pads now. Like, and I'm bleeding through them. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, it's your anxiety. Like, it's just your anxiety. We get to Atlanta. We're like walking to dinner. My husband's like, why are you walking so slow? I'm like, I'm just in a lot of pain. He's like, okay. And something told me, they're like, you need to go to Atlanta. Like, and in my head, I was convinced my husband had hurt his thumb. I think it was his thumb or his finger. No, I think it was his finger the game before. He had never missed a game in his career. And I'm like, something's going to happen to his hand in the Atlanta game. I have to be there. Like, I have to be there if he gets injured because he's never been injured before. And I'm like, okay, I have to be there. And so it's that Saturday night, he goes to meetings. He comes, I guess he was knocking on the door of my bedroom. Like I didn't even hear him, or my hotel room. He calls me, he's like, what's up? I'm like, oh, I had passed out. Like I was sleeping. He's like, okay. He's like, oh, I come to say goodnight to you. Like open the door. So he said goodnight, went to his room. And like probably 2 hours later, I was laying there and I'm like, I'm just in so much pain. Like took a Tylenol. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I started contracting and I'm like, oh, I was like, it's just Braxton Hicks. Like, I'm like, this isn't real. Like, like whatever. And so I got up, went to the bathroom. I was bleeding a little more. And I'm like, okay, Jen, just go to bed. Like, so come back to the room. And I feel like in my stomach, like a pop. And I was like, is that my water? I was like, there's no way my water just broke. So I stand up, nothing happens. And I'm like, okay, lay back down. About 5 minutes go by and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to force myself to go to the bathroom one more time and then go to sleep. Like Len has a game in the morning and I stand up and my water just like broke. Like, and I'm in a hotel room by myself. So I go to the bathroom. I mean, clearly she was just a little less than 20 weeks. So like one push, she was out. And I'm like, she was just too little. Like she was, it was just too soon. And I ended up calling my husband and he was just like, what? Like what? And it was almost just that moment of shock. Because you don't, know. And I call my doctor then. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like I'm in Atlanta in a hotel room. Right. Like I just delivered. I just literally, without saying too much, but I'm like, I just ripped this umbilical cord, like with my hands to get this baby out of me. Like, and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened. Come to my office on Monday morning. Like,
wait, what?
So like, don't go to the hospital. If you pass the placenta, you're fine. And I was like, okay. And like I said, I'm such in shock at this moment. And I mean, I was in shock, I feel like for months, like it just didn't feel real. And so don't go to the hospital. Oh yeah. And now looking back at it clearly, I was like, why didn't I go to the hospital? But I was like I said, I'm like just in a daze. Like I didn't know, like I have goosebumps just thinking about it. Cause I'm like here I am just like delivered this baby. And so the baby's sitting on the sink in the bathroom. And I guess I was told that certain like hospitals, if the baby isn't past 20 weeks, they'll just discard your baby. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to the hospital, like if that happens. So the morning comes and my husband literally gets dressed. He's always on the first bus and he didn't get on the first bus. And I'm like, okay. And like the second bus leaves and he's not on the second and he takes finally the third. And I finally text like our player personnel person. And at this point I hadn't announced yet. And I'm like, hey, like this happened. Charles is headed to the game right now. And he's like, what? And I'm like, he's never missed a game in his career at this point. And I'm like, that's big for an offensive lineman, who's played 10 years. I'm like, he's headed to the game right now. Can you please tell coach what happened? He's like, okay. And I guess the second coach went and like up to him, like he broke down. And coach was like, you don't need to play today. Like sit it out, be with Jen. And so they're like, why don't you guys go home? And so I was like, okay, I'm looking up flights. And then I realized that I'm like, I have this baby with me. I can't take the baby on the plane. Like, what am I supposed to do? So the team ended up saying like, why don't you guys stay with us? And they're like, you can stay in the hotel. And I'm like, can we go to the game? Everyone's like, what? And I'm like, football was always my outlet as a kid, like to get away from everything. And I'm going to cry, but I'm like, for 10 years, like why my husband was in the league, it never was that. It never was my outlet to get away for anything, because clearly you watch them play and it's like, you're always worried. You always are, and if it's not even him, you're worried for his teammates, like, and I'm like, every snap is like, is someone going to get hurt, and I feel like for once, like we sat down, we watched a football game together and it was at such peace. Like wow. I enjoyed football again. And it like almost made me just like forget about what just had happened 12 hours ago. So luckily the team had got us on the plane afterwards. I got to fly home with her. We got home and like the crazy part is like clearly I announced then after we told our family, I'm like, I have to announce this. They're going to say, I have like a little following on social media, but I was like very interactive with the fans. And I'm like, when they say Charles is missing for a personal reason, like everyone knows I'm pregnant. Like we announced this, people know this pregnancy has been rough. Mm-hmm. Like, this is the easiest way for me just to tell everyone. So I made just a post on social media. The media clearly said, that we had lost our daughter. But the craziest thing is like, we lost her. We flew back. I called Monday morning to go to the doctor. They told me they couldn't get me in. So I hadn't been seen yet. And finally Tuesday at 3 p.m., they saw me and basically walked in the room and they're like, are you depressed? Like, well.
Who is this doctor? This is crazy.
Oh, yeah. Like it
makes me so angry.
Oh, it was like, and that's like been my biggest thing is like why I'm sharing this is because I want women to know that if you are going to a practice that is treating you that way, like find somebody else. Just go somewhere else because there's a chance, like I ended up going to another practice afterwards and I found out I had damage to my cervix from an IUD that was placed after my third daughter. And they said they can't say that is the reason I lost Peyton, but there's a high chance that my cervix needed to be stitched. And they're like, that stitch could have, and changed. I knew. So when I had my IUD, I like twice on it, I was like, I am bleeding for a whole month straight. Like what is going on? And my body kept basically trying to get pregnant. The IUD was placed improperly. And so then they couldn't get it out of me when I went to go get it replaced or taken out. Cause I'm like, this is causing me more issues. I'll just be off birth control completely. So I'm like, there were so many red flags now from my practice looking back, that I should have realized, but you just don't in the moment, So I was, very open and I have been very open about everything that happened with Peyton. We're still, I feel like, in that grieving process because, like I said, Charles missed that game. He didn't go to work on Monday, and he was right back to work the next day. Like, and he, played the rest of the season. Like we didn't grieve together until we got back in Texas in February. And I'm like, we're still in that process, of like figuring out like what life looks like. The girls are like, oh, like Peyton's in heaven. Like they know that, but I'm like, I feel like for us is like, the biggest thing is just like helping other women that are in that situation and helping families get through it. Because once I shared this, I'm not kidding, thousands of people have reached out and been like, my doctor did the same thing, or this same exact situation happened, or I delivered my own baby too. It's heartbreaking and it's so sad because you think that you're going to a doctor to get the care that you need and you just get brushed off. And like I said, after I delivered that baby, they were like, okay, well, we're not getting the money out of her. Like, it was like, are you depressed? And tried to medicate me. And I'm like, I don't want to be medicated. Like, I want to try to like, I love to feel. Like, I want to feel everything, even though it's bad. I'm like, that is healing to me. Like, I need to know. And if I numb out all these feelings, like, I'm not going to know if I'm properly healed. And they basically thought I was crazy. And they were like, I'd contact the practice because I'm like, I want to go to like a pelvic floor therapist. And I'm like, I've had now 4 pregnancies in the matter of a few years. And they wouldn't even sign off on my stuff unless I came back and saw them. And I'm like, I was just there. I don't need to come back. So
unbelievable.
So it's a journey. But like I said, I've always been that person on social media. I don't want to just share the highs because we're normal. A lot of people glamorize the lives of athletes and think we're not normal people, but we are. I'm like,
we're normal people.
We're so normal. I'm like, I have the same issues as everyone else out here, clearly. And I think that losing Peyton showed that to a lot of people. Like, no amount of money was ever going to fix that problem, you know, of losing her. And I think that it really just humanized us to people. And that's really my big goal. So,
and you know what I think about, Jen? I think about how many times you spoke up for yourself, how many times you said something's not right, and how they brushed it off and tried to make you believe that it was you, that it was anxiety, but deep down you knew, like in your heart of hearts, you knew like, no, something's not right. And they never just took the time, took a little time to try to, okay, let's look into this a little more, right?
Yes, it was, I'm like, it was just wild. Like looking back at it now, I'm just like, what? Like you would think that someone comes to you and they're like, no, like, I mean, the doctor literally delivered my third baby. And that was another thing. I'm like, technically, I feel like I should have been a high risk case because my third baby came early. So I'm like, you know, over the head. She's like, oh, she was healthy. You got to bring her home. I'm like, she still came a month early. So I'm like,
a month early. Yes, that is high risk. Yeah.
And I'm like, so what? I'm like, hey, I tell everyone now, clearly I wish Peyton was here with us. But I'm like, the impacts that we're doing a lot with our organization coming up this October on our 1 year. And I'm like, I hope that we are able to impact so many lives. Like just because she's not here doesn't mean that we aren't going to be impacting lives, you know, because of her. So just look at the positive out of the situation and try to keep rolling.
And I love the fact that you were like, I don't want medication. I want therapy. I want to be able to talk through it, to heal through it, which a lot of people, you know, they do the opposite, right? They want the medication. They want to mask it. They don't want to deal. And so you're
which
like,
I feel like that's another controversial topic for people because some people are like, oh, like just take the medication or just do this. And I was like, I never took medication after any of the kids for postpartum anxiety or depression. Like I really was like, I want to figure out how to get through this on my own. And it's hard. Like it is such hard work, especially when you're raising babies. And no shame to anyone who does choose the medication route. But I'm like, it was just a personal decision I made. And it makes me, I'm so proud of myself for getting through it because, you know,
so proud
you
of
have those days where I'm like, literally I got a message the other day that Peyton's headstone had finally been placed. And I'm like, I lost it. Like I was just a hot mess all day and everything was making me cry. And I'm like, it's okay. It's okay to feel those things. Like we, as a society, make people feel like they shouldn't embrace their emotions. And I think like my husband says all the time, it's my superpower. He's like, you're able to connect with other people because you are so emotional. Like you just feel for everyone. Like I watch a football game and see a guy get hurt and I don't even know like who he is or what his significant other, who she is. And I am just like heartbroken for them.
Right.
Like, finding her on Instagram, like I am praying for you. Like you are in my prayers. Like that is just me. Like I just feel for everyone. And
that's like cancer and you're that empath. My daughter's a cancer and she's the same way. She feels through and through. She feels it all. And I've learned so much from her, you know, because I thought I felt, but her level is like deep. And I'm like, okay, this is your gift, this empath that you are. That's definitely her gift.
Yeah, I have to remind myself all the time. It's a gift.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And then I think about you as this, you know, wonderful mother, this wonderful wife, all the things that you're doing. And then you decide to do something this fall. Like there's so many layers to you, which is so fascinating. You're launching your own consulting firm.
Yes.
This fall. Talk about that.
So I want to help athletes start their own nonprofits. So kind of when you're like, oh, when people want to, I was like, oh, I know this question's coming. But yes, so I have helped so many people, whether it's just setting up their events for them or find funding or, you know, literally do the 501(c) process. And I just got to a point that I'm like, this is something I'm so passionate about. Like I love helping athletes use their platform for the best thing that they possibly can do. And everybody has a different like passion of what they're passionate about.
Absolutely.
And I'm like being able to help others make an impact. Like that's amazing. Like that is literally a dream come true. Like I know we are so active in the community, but like I can't tell you the amount of times like in the past couple of years, people have been like, hey, Leno, like how did you get involved in the community? And he was like, hey, talk to Jen. Like have your girl talk to her. Like she'll help you guys. And I'm like, that is literally the best accomplishment. Like my husband will tell everyone,
Aww.
like, you know, I'm like, yes, football's cool and like all the accolades that come with that, but like he got to be nominated as the Walter Payton Man of the Year. Like he was nominated for Alan Page Community Award multiple times. And like those things, like, yes, it was his name, but he says all the time. And he was like, those were like our awards. Like we did that together. We were out in the community together, and being able to like take all of that and now help other people get to go do that. I'm like, you build a legacy like for your family. And I'm like, that's what it's all about. Like making these impacts, helping people, like what more can we do in this world, right? Like it's the best feeling. So
when you launch this fall, okay, so say I want to reach out to you and I want to figure out how I start my own nonprofit. Do you have like a website?
Yes.
How do they reach out to you?
I was supposed to launch this summer, and then I decided to be a Pilates instructor. So everything had to be pushed off because You're
just a busybody.
Yeah, I just had to, take on another little thing to my not busy life. But so I do have a website. I have a social media account. So if you go to my main page, which is Jennifer M. Leno, everything is attached there for my business. And then there's going to be a link on my website to set up a free consultation call. So we can just talk about because there are so many people even that I'm like, oh, you actually don't want a foundation. You just want to host community events, which is great. Yeah. You still can get funding, which is something we kind of are introducing with our nonprofit now. So if someone just wants to run an event, we can get the funding for you through our organization, put your name on the event, and people still can donate to you and get that 501c3 tax write-off. So there's so many little new avenues and things we're doing coming up in the fall within the organizations. But I just really want to help people, in the busiest time of their lives, like I said, I have a passion for nonprofits. I love all that admin things where some people are like, I don't want to deal with any of that. And I'm like, I'll help you. I'll be that person. Just show up at the event. Like, tell me what the vision is, and I'll put it together, share it with you. You tell me if that works, and then we will get it implemented,
I love it.
I just feel like, it's the busiest time of year, but people usually, they want to do stuff during season as well. Like, they're like, I feel relevant during football season.
Yeah.
So.
And it makes sense during that time, right?
Exactly.
Because there's so much notoriety during that time.
Yes.
So you guys reach out to her, Jennifer M. Leno.
That's me.
Right? That's your handle.
Yeah. So
okay. So are you ready for the 2-minute drill?
I hope so.
Okay. So the 2-minute drill, it's like I said, it's a fill in the blank, or it's a this or that. You just answer the questions. You get 2 minutes to answer. I made them. They're not too difficult. I promise. It's going to be fun.
You say that now.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Besides your hubby, name your favorite sports player.
Adewale Ngoulie. He used to play for the Chicago Bears, Miami Dolphins, defensive end number 93. He knows it too. I've met him now that my husband was in the league. He knows it.
I love that. Yes. Which player used Skittles as a midday snack?
In football? Oh. Uh-huh. I have no clue. All I could think of is basketball. I'm like, probably Derrick Rose, but I'm like, I have no clue. Football.
I'll give you a hint. Yeah. Seattle Seahawks, running back.
Marshawn Lynch.
There you go. Okay, favorite place you've ever traveled to?
Favorite place? I love Mexico. I'm a big tequila girl, so love me some Mexico.
There you go. Okay, would you rather be a team player or a star?
Team player, all the way. The fame part, my husband's the same way. Offensive lineman, we kind of fall into that, Yeah. I'm like, hey, we're a team. We're one.
Love it. Okay, who won the first Super Bowl ever?
Gosh, why don't I know this? I have no clue.
Okay, I'm gonna give you another hint. It's the team that you spoke about earlier that you guys beat.
I was being sarcastic. I know, the Chicago Bears.
Oh, you do?
Yes. Duh.
I love it. Tell me someone you admire.
Someone I admire. Gosh, I admire so many people. I think I'm gonna categorize this as a group of people as one.
Okay.
Women married to professional athletes. They are significant others. They handle so much.
Yes.
And I don't think that they get the, recognition that they deserve a lot of the time.
That's right.
Because unless you're involved in this life, you really don't understand it. So
you don't.
I admire every single one of them. I'm like, they're amazing for holding it down.
Amen to that. Okay, which 3 NFL teams play in Florida?
The Dolphins, the Buccaneers, and what we got? Tampa, Miami. Who am I missing?
North.
Jacksonville, Jaguars.
There you go. Bam!
I knew this.
Okay. If you could tell your younger self anything, what would it be?
Probably to not listen to the outside noise. I think that so often people will tell you, you can't do this or you can't do that. And you can do it. It doesn't matter if it's a woman in male sports or you're starting your own business or your own nonprofit. Like, you can do it. Like, you can do it. So don't listen to other people.
I love that. Okay, last question. What is next for Jennifer?
Well, clearly, the consulting business is starting. No more babies. Husband had a vasectomy, so we're done there.
Yes,
I'm
freedom
on a journey right now. Yes, we are done. Right? I'm on a journey. I'm actually in the process of doing 75 hard, so I have 6 weeks left.
Oh, and, wow.
I've lost like 30 pounds this year, so continuing on my fitness journey. And like I said, I just started coaching Pilates at an amazing studio. If you're ever in Dallas area, come check it out. It's called Form. But the studio there is just fabulous. The owner just really poured her heart and soul into this. And it has, I'm not kidding, I walked in there like not even a week after it opened. I'm in May and I'm going to hit 100 classes next week. Like, I'm obsessed.
That's incredible.
Like, I have to give her name is Charlotte, so I'll give her
shout out to Charlotte.
She in her business has helped me get through my grieving process more than anything. Like, finding that community, that fitness community, has been life-changing for me. So clearly that's big. Another big announcement that I'm not allowed to announce, so y'all have to follow me on social media, is coming in probably a couple months. And then clearly, like I said, just being a mom, taking care of my babies. Like, I'm all about I can get to go have lunch with my kids at school. Yeah. And I feel like even though life is busy as heck, I honestly feel like slowing down for once. Like, this fall, I'm so excited to just cook in my kitchen and be in one house for the year and not have to live in multiple places. And so just being a mom and
you're more than a mom. You know? You're a super mom.
Thank you.
And you are so incredible. And I have been looking forward to this podcast episode for a long time. So thank you for gracing Inside Lines podcast and really sharing who you are. I know you're going to impact so many people just because that's who you are, especially being that cancer empath. So I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun.
All right. Well, that's our show. For the latest on the Inside Lines podcast, make sure to follow on both Instagram and Facebook. You can also check out the website, InsideLinesPodcast.com, and listen to your favorite episode. Lastly, check out the YouTube page, Inside Lines Podcast, and make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so that you know when a new episode comes out. And please leave an amazing 5-star review online and let us know who you'd like to hear on Inside Lines Podcast. Until next time, leave it all out on the field. Thanks for listening.